Hey guys, Ron here, and over the last year I've made a couple of videos where I create original Pokemon based on various video game characters, and a couple months ago I created some Pokemon based on popular anime characters, like Naruto and Edward Elric, cause I'm way more of an anime fan than a gamer. It's an actual interest of mine, so it was a pleasure to translate some of mine and your favorite characters into Pokemon, so let's do it again. Keep in mind the types and concepts of these Pokemon aren't going to literally be the same as their inspiration. Just because I'm making an Eren Yeager Pokemon, that doesn't mean it's going to be a literal attack titan. I want to create separate, believable Pokemon that have unique concepts based on their origin. But keep in mind, I've caught up to all the anime that I'm covering in this video, but not the manga, so I'm basing it all on the material in this show. I'm sure Deku has unlocked more abilities in the manga that I'm not aware of yet. But make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and let me know which anime character I should turn into a Pokemon next, and how. So like I said, I'm going to turn Izuku Midoriya from My Hero Academia into a Pokemon. Spoilers ahead, by the way. So Midoriya inherited the quirk One for All, which gives him the accumulated power of all wielders, superhuman strength, and agility. His costume is modeled after his hero and mentor, All Might, which kinda makes Deku look like a bunny. And I know Miriko exists, but, rabbits are perfect inspiration for a Deku Pokemon, especially since he mostly uses his legs nowadays. But over the course of the last few seasons, Deku has unlocked various powers from previous wielders, like Black Whip and Float. But if I included every single quirk that Deku has acquired, it would be incredibly tough to pinpoint what kind of type to give him. So I'm just gonna stick to the physical and visual aspects of Deku. He's gonna be a fast, hard-hitting rabbit with electricity that discharges from his body, but there will be nods to One for All's various accumulated quirks. I hope at no point during that I said All for One by mistake, because that's a common thing. It's all about picking a pose that doesn't make him look too humanoid, or at the very least, not too much like an adult human considering he's a teenager. I picked this crouching superhero landing pose before and after one of his big jumps. I decided it wouldn't hurt to incorporate Midoriya's literal eye, so it would look more like Izuku, considering the rest won't. I tried giving him some of Midoriya's curls, but that won't stick. These thunderbolt-shaped ears modeled after the ones on Deku's costume, and a snout modeled after the metal part of his mask. This will be a mixture of all the different versions of Deku's costume, so I included the collar and torn look of his vigilante look. I even added freckles instead of whiskers, and a more aerodynamic shape for the head. I really want to emphasize speed. I wanted to include the patterns he has on his torso, but realized it would make it look more like a Pokemon if he had Thunderbolt patterns instead. Just refining it a bit and adding Deku's literal colors, but not the blue part, because I don't want to complicate it. As you see, the final version has another black lightning bolt. Honestly, I took some elements from Bakugo in order to make him look a bit more fierce, since technically Midoriya emulates Bakugo as well. And finally, Brave Verdant is here, the heroic Pokemon, a fighting electric type. Brave Verdant are driven by the desire to help as many as possible. It idolizes heroic trainers and learns from watching other Pokemon in battle. It's incredibly intelligent, using all that it has observed to swiftly take down enemies and save the day. It launches itself with powerful electricity and lands devastating kicks. It never gives up and tends to risk damage in order to succeed in its endeavors. It has been observed to have the ability to manifest its electricity as tangible webs that it uses to grab onto opponents. It can even use electromagnetism to float above ground and sense danger. Its abilities are Justified and Guts, with the hidden ability Quick Feet. Its shiny is a blatant reference to All Might. I'm incredibly proud of this design. I tend to love the combination of green and black, so I can't help it. But it's crazy how it feels like Midoriya since I used his eyes while literally still being a bunny. Hopefully the contorted pose it has makes it look less humanoid. Next is this year's most anticipated and popular and perhaps well-received anime, Chainsaw Man. I'm going to turn Chainsaw Man himself into a Pokemon. Now, Denji literally has the heart of the Chainsaw Devil inside of him, allowing him to become a half-devil monster with chainsaws coming out of his limbs and head. Other than the obvious usefulness of chainsaws in battles, drinking devil's blood allows him to fully recover from injuries, so I want to somehow incorporate that. Originally, I was going to use a dog as a partial inspiration to make our Pokemon look like a humanoid Pochita, but then I remembered that sawtooth sharks exist. So how about we take a cue from Garchomp and make a land shark with chainsaw fins? I mean, it's as simple as Denji's ambitions. Just a Pokemon that enjoys the little things. He'll be a draconic shark with chainsaw arms. Originally, I leaned in too much into Chainsaw Man's actual design for the face, but eventually decided a shark-shaped face would make it more convincing. I turned his chainsaw handle into a fin and gave him this happy Denji grin. The lines on Chainsaw Man's face really work as gill-like lines below the eyes that other shark Pokemon have, like Garchomp and Sharpedo. I decided that instead of chainsaw hands, he'll have chainsaws coming out of his fins, like how Denji's chainsaws split his hands open. time to refine some of the proportions and commit to the concept. Figuring out the patterns will be tough. I want them to emulate Denji's formal attire, so some blades that look like a tie and some patterns on the lower half that allude to pants. The blades on the chainsaw are going to look like shark fins, but it wasn't until I began to color this fiend that I came up with a completely different idea. What if those saws are made of water? And just like how Denji has to drink blood to replenish his health, this Pokemon simply drinks more water in order to replenish his sharp water saws. The color scheme goes through a ton of configurations, but I finally decided to add a pattern on his bottom lip that looks like the collar of Denji's shirt. And in the final design, his tie patterns look even more correct. Beware Razorek, the chainsaw Pokemon, a water steel type. Its name is clearly a combo of Razor and Wreck, but also sounds like Resurrect, which is literally what happened to Denji. Razorek has the ability to control water and uses his power to conjure bubbles of water around their fins that they spin at incredible speeds in order to create water saw blades. This highly pressurized water can cut through ships. Razorek loves to battle and can endlessly fight as long as it replenishes its energy by drinking water. It is dim-witted but well-intentioned. Razorek are known to enjoy meals and the company of others. It will consume anything and will never refuse food. Razorek is famously kind to small Pokemon. It has specialized spines on its head that rotate, allowing him to cut using its snout when there is no water around. It has the abilities No Guard, Tough Claws, and the hidden ability Water Absorb. Its signature move, Water Saw, is an exact clone of Crabhammer. Its shiny is basically blood red. Perhaps this one manipulates blood like power. I'm very certain I was able to capture Denji's energy. I'm very happy with the face and glad that I came up with a way to not literally give him chainsaw hands. He's over the top, but that's the essence of Chainsaw Man. Next is the only completed anime from this lineup. We're going to use Ryuko Matoi from Kill la Kill. Basically a girl looking for her father's killer in a world where clothes are sentient and give you superpowers. She wears this sentient uniform, Senketsu, which in exchange for her blood gives her immense power. Unfortunately, in her powered up form, she's wearing incredibly revealing clothes and I do not want to get demonetized, so I'm not showing you Ryuko in her Kamui Senketsu form. But most importantly, she has a scissor blade, or at least half of one, that can sever life fibers, giving her the edge over other foes who wear indestructible clothing as well. I'm a huge fan of Ryuko's design, and the Pokemon I'll make will have her exact color scheme and scissor blades for hands. I want her to be this little fairy-type gremlin akin to Tinkaton, who has indestructible fur, which is most hardened around her scythe-like hands. It won't be based on any particular animal, but will look a bit feline to emphasize Ryuko's defiant side. I'm so glad Ryuko has that red streak in her hair because it was so easy to use as a design element in this Pokemon's face. It'll basically have the face of an edgy cat Pokemon with hair as the fur-like whiskers, these giant shoulder pads, and half a scissor for her arm. The bottom half of her body has long fur that looks like Ryuko's skirt, then these feline legs. I love this authoritative stance. Throughout the process, I'll make her shorter and shorter so she doesn't have the literal proportions of an anime girl. I redesigned the face so it's not too lopsided, gave her a chest pattern, and added paws to the arms to showcase that her hand does exist, but is extremely sharp and indestructible. Finally adding her other arm. You see, she basically crosses her arms together in order to combine them into a scissor. After adding Ryuko's colors, I'm reminded why I think she has one of the best designs in anime. This is such a pleasing color scheme, but it looks pretty weird with skin tones, so I made her face gray and used her Senketsu boots for the legs instead. Say hi to Lacerate, the scissor Pokemon, a fairy steel type Pokemon. Its name is pretty tight since it contains the word lass in it. This Pokemon is 100% female. Lacerate is covered in fur that reflexively hardens when it senses danger. The fur on Lacerate's long paws become especially sharp and can cut through bone. Lacerate hates authority, but will become best of friends with trainers that have its back. When they overlap their arms, Lacerate's blades become full-fledged scissors, which it uses to finish off its opponents. This signature move, called Scissor Blade, is a steel-type move with 110 base power and 100% accuracy, but can only be used when Lacerate isn't holding an item, since in order for her to use her scissors, she needs both hands to be free. Her abilities are Defiant, Mold Breaker, and Sharpness. Her shiny is based on Satsuki's color scheme. Like I said, I turned one of my favorite character designs into a Pokemon, so of course I think this design is the bee's knees. And last but not least, Attack on Titan. I'm going to turn Eren into a Pokemon. But again, spoilers, he pretty much already turns into a monster. And not only that, but there already exist Pokemon that look exactly like Eren in his Titan form. Grimmsnarl, who is technically already a smaller being inside a shell of fibers that make him look bigger, especially in his Gigantamax form. So my challenge is not to make a Grimmsnarl. Originally I was thinking of a dark fighting type, but then it would literally be an attack titan, so I'm gonna go for an idea of a little vengeful guy inside a bigger, more powerful guy. But as you'll see, that'll evolve into a completely different concept as I draw. First, I was simply adding the features of the Attack Titan with the hopes of later figuring out how to make it look more Pokemon-like. The hair stays, but the jawline won't. I decided to at least give him an attacking pose, the classic punching pose, hollow ghostly eyes, and I will constantly try to add a little angry guy inside this hulking figure as if the Titan was just dark aura that this little body was astral projecting. But I had no concept for the little dude. I wanted the Titan to have physical mass, so I finally decided to make this into a possessed rock with moss as hair. The Eldians can be interpreted as a Jewish allegory after all, so I'm gonna turn it into a golem just like the Reggies, who are officially called the Legendary Titans. It'll be a giant hollow rock possessed by a vengeful ghost. We don't see the ghost just like Mimikyu, but it's inside. I gave it a hexagonal hole from which the ghost enters the golem. I'd put it at the nape of its neck, but that's covered in moss and not facing the audience. Some cracks instead of abs and pecs. Extra detail to make it look old and sedimentary. Adjusting the proportions and finally adding the colors. Now it looks like a rock monster with some moss on its back and diamond fists inspired by Eren's hardening ability. Here comes Colossal, the Attack Titan Pokemon. A ghost rock type. A vengeful spirit possessed a stone vessel, creating this relentless Pokemon. It yearns for the defeat of its enemies and will not rest until its quest is fulfilled. No one knows if it seeks to protect or simply enjoys to destroy. It lets out a loud wail that resonates from its hollow body, which paralyzes enemies and wakes the dead. It can order other ghosts to attack. It can also control the density of its rock hide. It's adept at hand-to-hand combat and uses its diamond fists to repeatedly pummel its foes. Nobody has ever seen Colossal's real body. It gets angry whenever those curious enough try to take a peek into its chest cavity. It has the abilities Moxie, Iron Fist, and Anger Point. Its shiny is simply the Attack Titan's colors. This guy's dope. I'm very proud of the pose and overall silhouette. It proves my point that you can make a Pokemon based on a character without it literally having the same exact concept as its inspiration. And I hope you enjoyed this video enough to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't. Consider becoming a patron or clicking the join button to get cool rewards like seeing my videos days early and a huge discount on the t-shirts I made for you guys. Follow me on Twitter where I post sneak peeks and final art of my designs too. Bye!